Morning, everybody. How you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I'm Sean Butler. Bugsy Maloney's up in front. Looking forward to meeting the cows in just a minute. I don't know if you can see them. How you doing? I hope you're happy and healthy, doing the things you love. It's Tuesday, which means it's news day. Tuesday is often a day where I like to come out here and give you some spurious links to transfer rumours. And today, my transfer news, views and clues actually has a little bit less spuriosity to it, if that's a word, and a little bit more, I don't know, ITK status. We'll find out when I talk about Gift Orban and Kyogo Furuhashi. And I'll ask you whether it puts you in a good mood. Always come in with the farm jokes, guys. They get quite repetitive. Let's start with Gift Orban. Noise out yesterday. I didn't put a video out about it, but you've got it today as a joint in one. Gift Orban, Gent apparently have said, don't bother putting in a bid for him unless it's above, I think it was 26.8 million, 25.8 million, something like that. The number's irrelevant. Around the mid to high 20s as a pound sign in front. And that will likely result in Daniel Levy coming out with a £12 million bid just to test the water, and then we'll go from there. You know the process. And look, I love this guy. I do love this guy. But at the same time, there's links emerging today that are about Kyogo Furuhashi, and that Tottenham are about to go back into Celtic and test their resolve. And the number that, I think it was the Mirror on Sunday a couple of months ago, back in June, they said that we could get Furuhashi for about £15 million, £14 million. The number has probably doubled since then because of the precedents that have been set around the transfer market this summer. Some absolutely insane overvaluations, in my opinion, have been going on. But the market is the market, and you'd have to deal with it. And so what it leaves you with is a double scenario where you have, if Tottenham are going to look towards the lower end of the market for someone who can play in the 9, who's proven it elsewhere, proven it at lower levels, but hasn't taken the step up, which is all you're going to get for the £30 million valuation, unless you're getting someone who's massively on the decline or someone who's just not that good, then you have to take a risk. Now, Tottenham otherwise could go after a 70, 80 million pound player and spend the Harry Kane money, all of it pretty much, on a Harry Kane replacement. And we'll talk about that today. I think you'll be seeing this video after a live stream I'm doing with the Irish Hotspur, where we're going to talk about the entire plethora of number 9 options, and for that matter, wing forward options that we could be looking at. So make sure you go back and check that out if you haven't seen it yet. But for the purposes of this video, the two transfer news rumours that are kind of heating up a little bit is Gift Orban and Kyogo. Both of them, I think it's Pat Nevin, who's ex-Celtic and ex-Chelsea. He was saying it would break Celtic hearts, not only for them to have lost Ange, but then for Ange to come back and get their best player. And look, he was the Scottish Players Player of the Year last year. I think in something like 86 appearances. I think he scored something like 55 goals and 11 assists, something like that. So an incredible ratio of, like, what would that be? It's essentially a goal contribution every, like, 0.75, 0.8 per game. So maybe 110 minutes per goal contribution, which is an incredible ratio for 2 years. You compare that to Gift Orban, and we did those numbers the other day. He's around a goal contribution every 70 minutes, which is madness as well. But Gift Orban's been doing that at what I would consider to be lower level clubs. When he was doing it in Norway, you know, I had to go and look. When he had that sort of 25 goals, but from 12 XG, you have to go and look and think, like, how good is he at finishing that he can take every chance to be able to outperform, to double his expected return. And it's either because he's just an incredible finisher, which he is, or through ridiculously poor mistakes from goalkeepers or defenders that, you know, allow for difficult outcomes to become reality. And if in the latter of those two scenarios, that doesn't usually happen to a frequency that would create that big of a gap, one here, one there. But actually, when I was looking into his goals in Norway, there were quite a few goalkeeping howlers. And I think that's one of the things you have to come to terms with when you're evaluating Gift Orban, or Furuhashi, but to a very much a different degree. Like, is this guy just a raw bundle of talent that as of yet hasn't had the chance to prove that he can do it at the top level? Or is he just a very good player amongst poor players? And that is the risk, that is the trade-off. But how good is he really? He's only been playing professional football for 2 years, 2.5 years. He didn't have any youth development. He only discovered football late into his teens. So it's clear that he is a bundle of talent. But when you're playing against the world's best players who have developed, have trained, have learned, does that gap get closed pretty quickly? I don't know. Who knows? You never know until it happens. But I think you could make the same argument for Furuhashi. I just think that the gap from the Premier League to the Scottish Premier League is far lighter. It's a far more shallow drop down than the gap from the Premier League to the Belgian League or the Norwegian Second Division. Doesn't mean that either of them won't make it. Both of them could absolutely succeed. For me, I think it's just a case of where is the risk appetite for you as a fan, for Levy as a businessman, and for Ange as a manager. Does Ange really want to go back to his previous club where he's loved and heralded as the greatest, or one of the greatest, and rip their hearts out by taking their best guy? I don't know. I don't know whether he would want to do that. You know, he does seem like someone who's got loyalty points in the bag, and someone who wants to do what's right for his new club, but also not kind of, I don't know, tread all over the path that got him there. And so maybe he would lean into Orban just because there's less kind of complications, less complexity with that mindset. Maybe he thinks Orban's just a better talent. Maybe he thinks, I know that Furuhashi can do it. I've been there, I've seen it. I know this guy intimately. I don't know Gift Orban. So maybe he would lean and say, for me, I know what I know and I don't know what I don't know. I'd rather go into the season with Kyogo, a guy that I believe will absolutely make the step up. It will be interesting how much influence he will have in that decision, how much influence Daniel Levy will go for. What about Gavinini? Who's scouting him? Will it come down to dollars and cents? Will we go in a completely different direction and Daniel Levy recognised that he made a massive mistake with Richarlison and that we need a talisman, you know, the likes of Vlahovic or, you know, Kolo Muani, someone else who can step up, step in and close that gap on the Harry Kane absence? Time will tell. What I do think is necessary. What I do think is so time will tell, but what I do think is 100% the more likely outcome is that we will have to move players on before we can bring players in. We have about 12 players in the squad too many, maybe 10 players in the squad too many, depending on who you ask. And I think that there's a danger of bringing in another 2 or 3 players before you move anyone out. I think that it probably makes sense that right now we need to hurry up and make decisions around Hugo Lloris, make decisions around players like Sessegnon, Reguilon, Brian Hill, Sanchez, Dyer, Davies, Jed Spence, Alfie Whiteman, Austin. I mean, the list goes on. There's so many players in our squad that probably are not going to find too many opportunities for minutes. But how dry does the market feel for those sort of second and third tier players? You know, you're seeing all the world's best players going for record money right now. but there's not that much interest in, at least in Tottenham's kind of failed project. So we'll have to see how that looks. What I would say, guys, is I don't expect anything to really happen in terms of incomings before the Manchester United game. So we are where we are for that. But I don't know if you saw that game yesterday. Manchester United were incredibly fortunate. Wolverhampton Wanderers looked the business. If they could find a way to score, finish their dinner occasionally, they'd be a much healthier team than the Premier League table often represents. But Manchester United exposed themselves. To me, their midfield was completely vacant at times. I think they've got, I don't know, it's like a Swedish nightclub. Too many tens. Too many tens. And yeah, I feel like that midfield can be got at. If Basuma plays really well and holds his end of the bargain up, then I think the risk for me, of course, is, you know, if we take on the same tactics as we do against Brentford, and you're going to ask Emerson to come and sit in and do the double six to help Basuma out, you're going to have that access down that channel again. And look, Emerson's not the fastest. I think one of the problems is that sometimes you're playing against players that have just got gas on you. You know, Wissa and Mbeumo and Henry are all very fast players. Emerson isn't. And, you know, to me, Rashford's got that gas as well. So I feel like we have to be cognizant and aware of what we're expecting of Emerson against Rashford, because I feel like if they are going to have success and if the tactics from us are the same, then they'll do exactly the same thing Brentford did. But Rashford is a far more clinical player. It's a tricky one. I hope Ange is thinking about this. Would it be better to kind of almost flip the roles a little bit and ask Udogie to do more of that kind of gap work and allow Emerson more of a one-on-one and sit back and protect against Rashford? I don't know. Listen, we'll talk about that during the week. But anyway, I'm getting off the topic. I apologise. For me, we got a chance against Manchester United with the squad that we have, and I think that Richarlison might have a bit more luck being able to play on the shoulder, because the United defence will be a little bit more higher up. They won't want to play with the back five. So I think it's a different kettle of fish, different whole scenario. We'll talk about that during the week. But for me, I want to know your thoughts on whether or not you fancy Furuhashi over Orban over Furuhashi. If we're working at that £30 million range, I don't know. I feel like Furuhashi has less risk, but probably less ceiling. And Orban for me is the exciting one, and I'm up for taking a punt. And I don't know, if we get one of them in, is that good enough? Are we happy then, or do we need to go again to replace Brian Hill and get someone that can play on the width? So much to talk about. I hope you enjoy the show that will be on by the time you see this with the Irish Hotspur. I'll see you later, guys. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always, bye bye.